Hello and welcome to the 15-minute show, part of the Arsenal Therapy podcast. As always, I'm your host, Adam Keys. You can find me on Twitter at AdamKeys_. Today, I am starting the show alone. However, I will be turning this monologue into a dialogue very, very soon, as Farhan will be joining us to jump on and discuss some things. So first up, we've got the game ahead, which comes at us tomorrow night. And I wanted to have a quick run through kind of the backlash of the United game, some of the reactions, which we have discussed in more detail on the main pod, which you can find on Apple, Google, Spotify. So make sure you go and check that out. However, the big thing was obviously we got beat 2-0 on Saturday night by Man United. And whilst many of us wanted to see a win, it did put a dampener on our Saturday nights. So I have Farhan on now, so I'm just going to add him to the screen. Here we go. Hey, Farhan, thanks for joining.
Good morning, Adam. How are you doing?
I'm very good. So I've literally just told everyone that you would be hopping on any minute. So thanks for joining, and you've got a big day today. So So let's dive straight in because you do have a lot on today. You've got your brother's wedding, so big day for the family. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm literally trying to get changed as we're doing the stream. You'll probably see me reaching out for my tie and try to put it on. Big day all the way in Norwich. So it's going to be a 2-hour journey there, 2-hour journey back, and obviously the forced short talk and forced conversations throughout the day. You know what it's like.
And telling everyone about the Arsenal Therapy pod. So thanks for joining. And I had just started talking about the game on Saturday night and said that we had discussed it in the main pod. Mm-hmm. However, the obviously the result was disappointing. There are many factors that go into pre-season that we don't always know about, but we've got Barcelona tomorrow night. And so I wanted to touch on that. That was kind of the first starting point of this show. And the key news going into the game was the game could have been called off. There was sickness within the Barcelona camp, and there was kind of reports out there that this game may not go ahead. However, those reports seem to have ended now, and it looks like everything's on track. Arsenal have released a video of Saka calling Pedri and so on, and both sets of players kind of doing this weird little talk to each other. But going into the game, the big news is Balogun's been training alone. Zinchenko has also been training alone. So we're going to start with Zinchenko because he seems to be the only real injury within the group at the minute. And the news that we hope is that he's recovering very quickly because he is one of the players, when he's not in the team, we notice a big difference. So aside from him, who are you most looking forward to seeing? And what changes do you expect to see from the United game on Saturday night ahead of Barcelona?
I do expect to see wholesale changes. I do expect Arteta, because this is one of the last opportunities that we have before. Well, it is the last opportunity before we have the Community Shield. So
the Emirates Cup.
Oh, sorry. Yes, the infamous Emirates Cup. So, one of the last few opportunities that we have before, competitive games begin. So I think we will start to see fine tuning in the Arteta system, hoping to see 2 6s instead of 1. I'm hoping to see Partey start alongside Rice. I think that's what I'm most looking forward to because, casting back to last season and what worked and what was the most effective part of our game, a lot of people will point out, you and I included, will probably point out the trio up front, Gabi, Martinelli, Saka, and Jesus forward, which was very exciting to watch. But what kept everything together and what was the most, I guess, consistent part of the pitch was the middle, was Xhaka and Partey. It's what made sure that the defensive half was as stable as possible, and it kept in the transition. It helped us move the ball really quickly and smoothly. So against Barcelona, I do want to see a more stable midfield. I don't really mind seeing any other changes up top because I think that's where we're most we've pretty much perfected that side of our game. It's a case of making sure that we have the right defensive combination at the back, and just, I'm hoping, reverting back to the 2-6s.
Yeah, I would like to see Rice and Partey playing together. Perhaps Rice in a slightly more advanced role, get him opening those legs. Really, we did see against United, because I've watched highlights back, I've watched his comps back, and I think a lot of the criticism of Declan Rice was actually fairly harsh. And whenever I look at what he didn't do anything spectacular, but there were a few very good interceptions. There are bits of play that he's broken up and so on. And those things are what we've become known. You have to remember, this is a defensive midfielder. We're not going out and buying a tricky winger. And there are going to be a lot of games where his job is literally to keep things ticking over in the middle. And if you watch Rodri, he's one of the best midfielders on the planet right now. And his game is built around one touch, keep it moving, intercept, keep it moving. And that's what we want to see from Declan Rice. If he becomes the very, very best, a lot of his game will be very simple. And to the, I guess, the casual viewer, they'll be like, they won't see the value in a player like Declan Rice. And that's when those players really hit their top level, because they're just so good that you almost don't notice them.
Yeah.
However, I do think Rice, with his carrying and so on, will always catch the eye. But the other big story is Balogun. It's one we've talked about on the main pod and on this show a lot. And we did hope at one point that maybe Balogun could stay, but with the news that he's training alone, that's looking less likely. And I had a read of the Athletic article before hopping on this show. It doesn't say anything about an injury. It doesn't really say anything about a transfer. It's very kind of, he's training alone. It is what it is. We'll leave the rest up to you kind of thing. Everyone knows the interest in Balogun. So do you think that this is a case of the transfer away is getting closer for Balogun?
I mean, there could be a number of different things happening. It could be the case that maybe Arteta wants him to work on something specific. Maybe we have identified him as a specialist in a certain field, and we want him to concentrate. I mean, who knows, right? This is just speculation.
Yeah.
We're all just assuming. But considering the fact we're in a window, considering the fact that he's been linked away for a while now, the most likely case is that he is there's work being done for a move away from Arsenal. It's unfortunate that it has to end like this. I would have liked to have seen a bit of a smoother transition. It never sits right with me when I hear news of players training by themselves. It takes me back to the days of Aubameyang, and we know how that ended. So we want to see the most amicable kind of breakup in a relationship. But it doesn't we don't need to assume the worst when something like this happens. I don't want to think like that anyway. But based on, the connotations attached to players training alone is, you've got injuries.
It's never good, is it?
Yeah, it's never good. It's either injuries, recovering from an injury, a fallout with the manager, or in this case, I think it is the case that he will be moved on. But the question is now, how much and where to?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to hope that we get close to the 50 million mark that we've set out. And I do believe if we get the 45, 50, even 40 for Balogun, that pushes us closer to hitting the 100 million incoming mark. So on the subject of outgoings, the next one that I wanted to talk about was Charlie Patino. So Fabrizio Romano has said that there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of clubs that see him as a very valid option this season. And he ticks a lot of boxes for a lot of different clubs. However, right now, it seems that Arsenal have received quite a few loan offers for him. But as of yet, no permanent bids. For Arsenal, that's not a bad thing. For Charlie Patino, he's dead set on moving on a permanent deal. So it seems he's not willing to accept a loan move. And as such, Arsenal, if they're selling him, are adamant that a buyback clause has to be inserted into any deal. Now, I think that'll mean that we sell him for perhaps like 8 to 10 million. We won't get a lot for him. Although he was good at Blackpool last season. You have to remember, this is a side that were relegated from the Championship. And for long periods, such as the Mick McCarthy spell at the club mid-season, Charlie Patino barely touched the ball. Neither did the other midfielders in the team. They just went over the midfield, long balls, bypassing everyone. So he had a very mixed experience at Blackpool. And although he was good, he didn't exactly tear up trees. If we're going to be brutally honest about him, he was good, but he was a kid that was learning. So if Arsenal want to buy back in there, we have to be realistic about the cost. And the other thing with a buyback is you want him bought back at a price that's still relatively low for you, which means taking a hit on the initial transfer fee. So where do you see Charlie going to? Where do you think's the best fit for a player of his ilk right now?
Yeah, I've had a lot of discussion about Charlie Patino and other youngsters in the team throughout, the window, and it's just unfortunate that at this current moment in time, there just isn't space or time for young players to come through the ranks at Arsenal. We're at such a pivotal stage right now where we just, we're focusing on fine tuning, making big signings as opposed to, promoting young players, developing them in the squad. If he was born 2-3 years later, and we were
Absolutely.
able to run the clock back a few seasons ago, it would be the perfect opportunity for him, and he would relish, he would flourish. You look at the journeys of Emil Smith Rowe, Bukayo Saka, Martinelli. They all followed a very similar road and in a very similar time period as well. It's just unfortunate that Arsenal can't do anything with Patino right now, because I do feel like there is a very special player in there. You only need to watch a player for a few minutes to determine whether there's something special about them or not, and he has that it factor. So Arsenal need to make the tough decision right now. They either implement him into the first team and manage his game time, manage his development. We have to remember as well, he did suffer an injury at Blackpool, so it would be critical to make sure that he's, at this point in a player's development, it's making sure that they're being managed the best way possible. We remember
Absolutely.
back to Martinelli's day, right, when he was constantly being played as a winger, and then suddenly we decided to play him as a centre forward as well. Tried him out for a few games. My stance with at that point with Martinelli was we need to manage him a little bit better. I think the level of consistency, playing him so consistently, might hinder his progression. It had the opposite effect. He, broke into a superstar. But yeah, the club need to decide what they want to do. And if Arsenal are intelligent, they will implement a buyback clause. Almost, that needs to be the first point of discussion when we're discussing selling players of that ilk. The same with Balogun as well.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I think you've really hit the nail, if he was born a few years later or a few years earlier, it would have been perfect for him. Because I do often think, what if Saka didn't break through at the exact time he did? It was kind of, he came through in a mess, became the shining light, and the club were very patient with him and Emil Smith Rowe, because although he was phenomenal during that time, he was phenomenal as a young player. At the beginning, he wasn't scoring the goals he is now, but we could see where he was going and we could trust him. And I do wonder as well with Patino if there is something there with Lewis Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri, in that they, to me, and this is just saying it on the limited amount that I've watched them all play, I do think that the two of them are just slightly more talented than Patino. And I actually think that Lewis Skelly is a phenomenal talent. And he's probably the one I've seen more of than Nwaneri. Nwaneri physically looks more ready to me, but Lewis Skelly is just a really, really exciting player, and you can only bring through so many. But hopefully we get a decision on that soon. But finally, the key topic, we all want to hear about incomings. So Mohamed Kudus is someone that continues to be linked, and we hear that Chelsea have been talking to him. And Ornstein put out a very strange tweet by his standards the other day, which was, Chelsea are close to agreeing personal terms. However, no talks with Ajax have happened, which is something we don't see from David Ornstein very often. And there's been kind of contrasting reports across Europe that Kudus would like to go to Arsenal. Brighton are still interested as well. Brighton have been chasing this one for a long time. We know Ornstein first reported an Arsenal's interest in May. So it's clear he's going to leave Ajax. But the other one that surfaced over the last couple of days, and again involves Chelsea, is Michael Olisie from Crystal Palace has a 35 million release clause. And again, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Man United could all be interested in him. I personally would rather see someone like Kudus than a Olisie. Although I like Olisie, I've just never seen him have that kind of killer instinct that to take him to the top level. And of the Palace players, I'm a much bigger Eze fan than I am Olisie. But where do you stand on the two of them? Do you think there's any substance to the Olisie rumours, or it's just all kind of waffle at the minute? And it's obviously there's very little Arsenal incomings out there. So do you think it's keeping the clicks alive whilst we are on tour?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely an element of churning out the names to keep things interesting, because we've entered a bit of a quiet, dry spell. But at the same time, we know that one of the areas to target this window will be down the right hand side to kind of manage Bukayo Saka a little bit more. Both names very credible, very viable individuals. I'm a massive Olisie fan. I have been for a while. And one of the things that I really enjoy about him is his level of confidence and the kind of the arrogance that he plays with it a little bit. We have very few players at Arsenal who have that the nonchalance, nothing kind of phases them. And despite not having, he's 21 years old. I think Kudus is.
I mean, we do have an ice cold right winger at the club at the minute. So
yeah. But in terms of like personality traits, Olisie just strikes me as someone who just doesn't really give a shit.
Like Ben White.
Right, yeah, a little bit like Ben White. And I like that. There's something about that it strikes fear in the opposition's heart. You need someone like that to just boost that bit of ego, I guess. So Kudus is 22 years old, Olisie is 21 years old. Both in terms of age profiles, perfect for Arsenal. Both would cost around, you're looking at 40-45 mil. You mentioned Olisie's release clause being 35, and they've both played a substantial amount of games. Are they both proven? Well, we know Olisie is Premier League proven. He has had bright spells. Being in the Palace squad, it's difficult, I guess, to see as much of the ball, or maybe exploit yourself in an attacking way than you might do at Arsenal. So it's exciting to see us linked to two, again, very exciting players, as opposed to not to say a nobody, but someone who Arsenal haven't heard of, or someone who we're going to be targeting for the next few years, like a 17, 18-year-old. So, I wanted one or two more signings, and it seems like that's the case. Arteta's comments were very clear in his press conference that we're going to be seeing plenty of incomings and outgoings. So I guess all that's left to say is watch this space.
Yeah, and finally, before we wrap up, obviously the news, Thomas Partey, it looks like he's going to stay. Arteta was pretty adamant, and we did discuss that on the main pod, but it's the other news. Kieran Tierney gave an interview yesterday with The Athletic, and his words were basically, my future's not only up to me, but I was available last season. When I played, I was still coming off the bench. I was still contributing. And I'd like to think anyone at the club would testify that I give everything on the training ground every day, whether I'm playing or not. So his comments were very positive about, even though he wasn't playing as much as he once did, he very much wants to stay at Arsenal. He hopes that he's going to get more football. But as long as he's getting minutes and being part of this squad. So he was very, very complimentary of his teammates. He said Declan Rice felt like he had been there forever. And overall, it felt like something that you hear a Pep Guardiola player saying, where, yes, they're not a starter every game, but they really believe in the project. And I think if that was 2 years ago when Kieran Tierney was getting the minutes he'd be saying, right, now I'm off. I'm not having this. But we're now seeing a player that thinks, you know what, I can be part of a squad here. Yes, I'm not going to be an automatic starter, but I could go away with a haul of medals. And that's potentially the level that we're getting to, and where the players start to believe. So hopefully, I would like to see Kieran Tierney stay, because I think he gives us a different option. But at the same time, I do have a lot of question marks over his decision making and technicality whenever it comes to Even the other night, he made a good interception, and the first thought was push it in front of him and cross it. And it was headed away straight away by, I think, Martinez. Zinchenko gets that ball, he looks up and he plays a simple pass. And that's the difference in the two. But I guess we will see what happens there. So I'm going to wrap up the show with that, just because I know you need to get away and you've got a big day ahead of you. So thank you to everyone that's joined us on the show today. As always, we've gone slightly over the 15-minute mark, but please like and subscribe to the channel. Every view counts on this, and we really appreciate the numbers continuing to grow. So yeah, make sure you check out the main pod, and you can find Farhan on Twitter at gunnersince96. You can find me over there at AdamKeys_, and you can find us at Arsenal Therapy. So make sure you go give the channel a follow. And always check out the main pod. We've had some great guests, and they're going to continue up until the start of the season. So thanks for joining us. Cheers, guys.